Thank you for joining me on Ready, Aim, Stamp. Today I am going to case a card made by I originally saw by Rose Ward at stampersdelight.com, and we are going to be using most of the items out of the Quite Curvy Variety Bundle. Now this bundle and the items are available. They started November 3rd, and most of it is available until January 4th. And then it will be, part of it will be in the January mini, the January to June mini. So this is like a early release for you guys that Stampin' Up! Is doing. The only two parts that will not be available again are the Curvy Christmas stamps and the Designer Series paper Classic Christmas. That's a 6x6. So if you want those two items, you do want to make sure that you order them during this promotional period before January 3rd. Here's just kind of a look at that beautiful, fun paper. The colors for this paper are Cherry Cobbler, Sahara Sand, and Shaded Spruce, and Whisper White. So this gives you kind of an idea of the fun patterns. I just love it. I think it's perfect size images to do a lot of different things with. All right, so this is the Curvy Christmas stamp set that is also only available until January 3rd. So if you want it, you need to make sure you get it. The dies, Curvy dies, and the Quite Curvy stamp set will be in the January to June mini catalog, so they will be available. This is the card that we are going to make today. And then I also used another stamp in the middle part, and I think that was from Wrapped in Christmas, and then that was all from the Curvy Christmas. So there's our kind of a fun fold technique, and you can see this is one of the dies from the Curvy Christmas die right here. So for this card, we are going to need a piece of cardstock. This one is Cherry Cobbler, and it is just the basic cardstock, cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to need a piece of Whisper White cardstock for the inside, cut at 5 1/4 by 4 inches. I have a scrap piece of Whisper White for my little curvy front, and it is about 2 3/4 by 5.5. A piece of DSP cut at 2 3/4 by 4. And then I did matching DSP for the sides, and those are cut at 1 inch by 4 inches. So for this card, I am going to bring in the paper trimmer. And I'm going to take our card base, and I've already reinforced the fold with my bone folder, so it's easy to see. I don't need the scoring blade. And I'm just going to line this up with the 1.5 inch, or 1 1/4, sorry, inch mark that's over here to the right. And then I'm going to take my blade and I am going to line it up with that center fold score mark. And I'm going to slide it up to the top. I'm going to slide my cardstock over until we line up with the 1 1/4 mark on this side. And again, you can start with the blade here and pull it down to the fold and just be really careful because you don't want to go past that fold. I feel more confident if I am starting at the fold. There are these little tiny marks on the score or the cutting blade that help you know where that blade is going to start. So when you're lining up paper that way. All right. So now we have the funny little flaps. Look like little arms, a little person puppet. My children watch or play too much Minecraft and I see it, obviously. All right. So now we have those pieces all ready. And I'm going to take my little scrap piece and I am going to line up my curvy die. And you want to pay attention, if you want the little circles to be on your cutout paper that you're going to use, make sure that you put that cutting mark on the right spot. Otherwise, you're going to lose those circles. So I'm just going to take some painter's tape and, if I can find it, and put it on the piece of the scrap paper. And I'm going to run over and I'm going to die cut that out. Be right back. All right, so we have that part cut out. And now I am going to also kind of flip this over, and I want to make sure that the circles are in what I'm cutting. And it doesn't have to line up exactly and be equal space between the two. I'm going to kind of try a little bit for it. You can use your grid paper, the lines on it, to help you line up. Have to get a couple little pieces of my painter's tape again. And I will go run this through the die cut machine and be right back. If your little circles don't come out, you can use the little corner here and poke them out, or you can get your little brush that goes with your take or pick tool. They come out fairly easily. And then the ones in the die, usually you can just tap it a few times and they pretty much eject. So there is my little centerpiece for our card today. I believe we are done with the die cutting. So now I am going to use my Versamark ink and the Bumblebee ink, and I'm going to ink up some stars for along the top of this. And you can see that this is going to line up fairly well this way. That's kind of the curve that it follows. So I'm going to get that on my block. I am using block I. And I am going to use the Versamark ink first and just ink up that image. And then I'm going to go over the Versamark onto the stamp with the Bumblebee. And let's see, I need a piece of scratch paper for under this. Okay, put my scratch paper under because the block is larger than, or the image is larger than the piece of paper I have for it. Just going to line it up and put it down. Clean off the stamp. Well, before I clean the stamp, because I want to put clear embossing powder on this image, it just helps it kind of pop out. So you want to do that while the ink is still nice and wet. And then I'll clean off that stamp. Okay, so now I'm going to shake off that excess powder. And I'm not going to heat it up with my heat tool yet because I'm also going to do a similar thing with my trees, only using the shaded spruce and the Versamark. So then you can see how the trees will line up with that. Pick that up onto my block. Careful not to disturb my clear embossing powder that I have on there. And I'm going to use, hopefully I'm in the shot good on these, my Versamark directly onto the stamp. And then I am going to ink it up with shaded spruce on top of my Versamark. And I'm going to line it up how I want it. Stamp the image. Once again, stick it in my tray to catch all that excess powder. And clear embossing powder. Oops, I almost stuck my finger right into the other powder. So hopefully you can see the powder kind of dulls the image right now because it's dry. It hasn't been heated up yet. I'm just gonna get this cleaned up and then I'll emboss that. So I have my paper on a little tinfoil backed cardboard base, and it just helps with the heating up process. And if you bear with the noise, I'm going to get out my heat gun. I want to see if this will transfer onto the video, just how cool it is to do heat embossing and watch your image as the powder heats up. So I'm going to warm up my gun for a couple of seconds just to make sure it's all hot. And then hopefully the trees, it should show even more there. Look, oh, pointing the wrong way. Just really brings that shine out. Hopefully you can see this as it melts that powder. All right, I'll look and make sure I got everything. Okay, so now we are going to finish this little part off with the Thinking of You at Christmas. And I think it'll fit on this block. Nope, it won't. Guess I'm going to have to clean this off. Hold on a sec. I did. All right. So now I have Thinking of You at Christmas, and then I have my Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Spot. It came in one of my paper pumpkin packages. Just trying to make sure that's all inked up. And it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Just put it in there. And there we have that. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a few little star sequins that I think also came from another paper pumpkin package, but you can use any fun sequins. You could use Wink of Stella. I just really like these sequins and thought they looked good. So I'm going to put my little glue dot, mini glue dot on there. See, it's like the rule of odd numbers in decorating and such. So I could stop there, but on my original, I did these two also. So I'll go ahead and do them on this card too. So there are 5. And then get out my sequins. And I'm going to use the take and pick tool, which I finally figured out. Has this little gummy stuff. When it wears out, you just tear it off. And while it's in the handle, you just turn it and it pushes up more gummy stuff. So then you can just grab those tiny little things, line them up, push them down. I like this tool a lot now that I've learned how to use it. Oops. All right, there we have our little front portion that's going to go across the front of our card, and we're almost ready to assemble. Let me gather all those pieces back together. All right, I wasn't quite done with stamping because I forgot about the inside of the card and the little phrase that we're going to hide in the middle. This time, and the phrase I'm going to use is, "It's the most wonderful time of the year." And the die that I used to cut out the other one, and I'm going to use again, is from Hippo Happiness. And that set, not only does it have 3 cute little animals, but it also has 3 different layering dies that are wonderful. So we're going to ink that up in Cherry Cobbler. And we're going to just stamp it on a scrap piece of Whisper White. And there it is. We'll cut it out with the die in just a moment. On the inside of the card, I have Merry Christmas and that sprig of pine bough or whatever, which also I've seen people use, and they've stamped it multiple times on the side of a card, and I make it look like a Christmas tree or a portion of a Christmas tree. So I'm going to use Shaded Spruce and ink these guys up. And try to eyeball that the best I can. I tried to get it on the block straight so that I could use the edges of my block to line it up with my inside paper. There we go. All right, now our stamping is complete and we're ready to assemble all the parts and pieces as soon as I die cut that little inside saying out. Just one moment. All right, so we have all of our little parts and pieces and we're ready to assemble our card. I am going to use my very dirty liquid glue. First, I'm going to adhere one of these little side panels. Not on top of my inside panel though. And you can use any side of the paper that you want. I just thought that the little trees went well with our trees on our little curvy strip. And feel free to add another little layer or frame like Rose Ward did on hers. I kind of like it without, but that's the fun thing about all this stamping, is that there's not one right way of doing it, and you get to express your individual taste and preferences in what you create. This is our center panel. That glue gives me just that little bit of wiggle room. And our last panel. then okay, so there's that. I'm going to flip it open and put our sentiment on the inside. Come on, little glue. Have to get another one, darn it. Poor glue. Good thing I have lots of it. Probably have to add that to my next order. The way I like to use my glue. All right. And then before we put this little message in, I'm going to put this piece on. And oh no, look at that. It is way too big. I wonder what I did there. Hold on, please. Okay, I went back and I trimmed that down to 5 1/2. Maybe I didn't get very straight, but that's okay because we're going to pop it up with dimensionals. So I'm just going to flip it over, and that will give me a good idea of where I should place my dimensionals, to where I only want them to cover these two, or be on these two side little flaps. So I'm going to try to be careful not to get too close to this edge right there, but I want it to adhere well and be good support, since these are the only things holding this longer skinny piece onto the card, and this piece also gives the whole card a little bit of stability. So now I'm ready to peel my paper off my dimensionals, if my fingernails will work. I should be using the little spatula end on my pick tool, but I still forget about it. Okay. So I'm going to line this up so that they're well placed, and line this side up against this edge, and then hope that this side doesn't adhere down where I don't want it. Okay. There we go. So now it will flap open, and I have a good idea of where I'm going to adhere this, and it will be completely hidden until they open it. And again, I'm going to use my multi liquid glue. Put it in there. It is hidden until they pop it open, and then they see an extra little special fun message, and then Merry Christmas. You can write on your card. So that, here was my other one with just the same background. And then I want to show you another one that I started to make, and it ended up being way too patriotic colors more than the Christmas colors. But I thought, well, that's perfect because we have a coworker who is a veteran, and Wednesday is Veterans Day. So I typed up on a label, "Your service will never be forgotten. Happy Veterans Day." And the other coworkers will all sign it and give it to the veteran to thank him for his service. And then I have one more card I want to complete with you, and it is using the snowflake paper. This is the top piece that I cut, and originally I had intended to try to get these fun little scallops. Well, you can see that I didn't make sure they were on the right side of that cut line, but I've decided that I'm going to like it even better. So I have prepped everything. I stamped on my inside. This is the balmy blue, and this is balmy blue on top of it. I used the Snowflake Wishes stamps. I stamped off and then used the second stamping of Balmy Blue, Highland Heather, and Misty Moonlight. My cardstock is cut from Misty Moonlight. And these snowflakes right here are from the Snowflake Wishes stamp set. And I am going to use May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. But I am going to mask off part of that because I don't want to use the bright stamped on there. I just want May Your Days Be Merry and... So I'm going to grab the stamp on my dirty block that I need to wash. And I'm going to grab some of my painter's tape. And I am going to make sure that I mask off only the word bright. Now I'm going to take my balmy blue and I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to take the tape off. I've accidentally not taken the tape off before. It was very sad. And I am going to stamp May Your Days Be Merry and voila. In just a moment and you'll see why I did not stamp the word bright. I used the Peace and Joy dies. I'm trying to make sure what their name of them is. The Joy dies. And I die cut the outline from Blackberry Bliss for the word bright. I cut the second layer for bright from Highland Heather. And then I used the sparkly blue paper that goes with the snowflakes, and I cut it out of the smaller bright. And I need to poke out the eye. I just don't want to lose it, so I was waiting. And we're going to assemble this part and attach it to the bottom of this. So first I'm going to put my sparkly paper on there, if I can get it loosened. It's a very delicate font. I cut a strip of the sparkle paper at just over 1 inch wide, and I ran it through my little Xyron machine so that it would be backed. The adhesive sheets would be great for this. And then we're just gonna peel the backing off. Very carefully. Because it is so delicate. Alright. Now I get to carefully line that up. This dot's going to be fun, huh? I would try to use my take your pick tool, but I don't know that there's any easy way of doing that. All right, so now I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue to adhere this one to the larger background shadow layer, whatever you want to call it. All right, yay, it worked. Then I'm going to adhere bright to this. I have to just decide where. And then I'm going to want to be very careful not to get glue past that point. So I'm just going to put it around these upper edges of the word. Pretty good. Just clean that off. And then we will adhere it to our card, decide where we want it, maybe down here. And then again, I'm going to flip it over so I can easily see, where to put some of these. And I'm going to put one down there, one right in the middle of that little seam. And three over here, maybe one more over here. There, I think that's probably good. So now I just want to line up my edges. And I like this center panel on this one so much. I'm not going to put anything to cover it. You could do a glittery snowflake. You could put another phrase. I just think it doesn't need anything. So there are our cards made with this fun fold technique and featuring the Curvy Christmas and the Curvy dies. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on Ready, Aim, Stamp.